Good morning, everyone. Good morning and welcome, whether you are here with us today or connecting with us via the conference call. So thank you. Thank you for making the time to be with us this morning. I'm here only to speak a few words of introduction, and I will leave you in the capable hands of Claire Calmejean, whom I think you're familiar with, who is the head of innovation at Societe Generale. She's in charge of deploying new practices, and with Christophe Leblanc, who is the group head of corporate resources and digital transformation at Societe Generale. So the both of them obviously will be going into the details of this Tech Week. So we are launching the 4th edition of the Tech Week. The Tech Week is an event that allows us, internally and externally as well towards the outside, how we go about using new technologies and where we're at, year after year. And this is a moment of when we become more familiar with these topics. This is not just a technical topic or an infrastructure topic. This is also a way to envision things differently, and it concerns everyone, people who are, in the front office, who talk to our customers, but also people in the back office. So it's an important event. So today we wanted to talk about the use of data. Last year, our focus was on the new business models derived from these technologies. For instance, how we can work hand in hand with startup companies to develop new activities. I'm thinking of Trésor, for instance. It's a platform which provides services to neobanks, so our competitors. So basically, culturally, we accept to develop business models that may one day challenge or compete with our existing operations. So this year, we'll be talking about the use of data with specific, precise, very practical use cases to show you how the use of data is becoming more and more diverse within Societe Generale. So one word about digital technologies. So after a year and a half, and we certainly all hope that we are not going to go back into lockdown for the fifth wave, but we have all seen the penetration of digital channels, and we think in a way that it will only accelerate going forward because more and more people have been using these digital technologies in their daily lives, including to access banking services. We have been witness of this through the number of active customers using our digital offers. 62% of our customers in retail banking in Europe, so France, Europe, and Russia, have been using more and more digital channels to access banking services. So what is interesting, as we had noticed previously, it's not necessarily in France where this percentage is higher or accelerating fastest. It's in Russia, actually. 69% of customers are online customers, and this is also the country where that momentum is strongest. There's also, the fact that 95% of payments and transfers are done through apps, and digital ways, if you will. It's very simple. Very few people actually go to the brick and mortar sort of agencies to make a transfer, a payment. So we're convinced that the use of technologies is going to increase more and more, which means also that the quality of service will improve, and therefore customer satisfaction will progress as well. So we're certain that these technologies will help us do our job better, basically, by freeing up time for the sales agent for high value-added tasks and advisory services, and that will allow our customers to consume simpler services much more freely. So regarding the use of data lies at the heart of the challenges of the years ahead. Over the last few years, we've made a lot of progress and a lot of efforts to build a more adapted technological foundation, if you will. We've changed IT infrastructure. Christophe will tell you all about this. We've added much more flexible, modular applications, those so-called APIs, which really can be integrated into other systems and can be used throughout the group. So something a lot less integrated than the legacy systems. And we've also been using more and more cloud services with it's a hybrid form, basically. We use private cloud services, which we own, and public cloud services, which we rent, basically. So we've made quite a lot of efforts and progress, but there still remains a lot to be done. This is but the beginning of this process. So again, we wanted to show you very concrete use cases which already allow us to do our job even more efficiently as far as marketing is concerned, as far as risk-taking decisions are concerned. And again, there is still a lot more to do, including in the use of artificial intelligence, or AI. Our idea is to make it more accessible, easier to use. These data, we're beginning to understand what it can bring in terms of new services and new approaches compared to the old world, if I may say so, which did not feature as much AI. But obviously, all this needs to be underpinned by a responsible use of AI, because we know that cyber risks are on the rise. The protection of data is becoming more and more important. The European continent is probably in the front line and certainly is spearheading data protection rules. And our fellow citizens will very likely be will be paying more and more attention to these questions. And when it is likely, again, that our, European consumers and customers will be more and more aware, if you will, of the importance of these questions. So we're going to keep getting more and more acquainted, if you will, with these technologies, again, with a view to improve our range of services. So this is what this morning is about, with very practical cases. I'm not going to, well, I don't know all of them. We already have 330 use cases that we're working on. I have some of them in mind, obviously. For instance, the advisory service system called Sinoe, which allows someone autonomously, basically, quite independently, to receive recommendations to allocate their assets with just one click, basically. It's a very simple process, and they may follow the said recommendation and modify their asset distribution likewise. So obviously, this takes into account market information, market knowledge, and the risk appetite profile of the customer. Obviously, there are many other use cases. We're going to use more and more data, as you know, because we used to have pre-established scenarios with risks, but with AI, we're going more and more to be able to identify the abnormal situations by learning as we go, not just by reproducing what we've seen in the past. So we'll be able to sort of filter out the abnormal situations as we go, thanks to AI, and with a human complement to go into the nitty-gritty, if you will, of these cases. So, but I've already spoken too much, so I'm going to turn to Claire and to Christophe. So I don't know if you have a general question, because if you have detailed questions, they will be much more able to answer these questions about the details. Or do you have questions, or if maybe everything is clear for now? Clear. We don't have any question online. So When it comes to the coming 3 years, we will be rolling out major strategic projects. First of all, the coming together of our two networks. I was in Lyon last week, and I addressed that question, and Sébastien is going through the French regions to communicate on the model that we've unveiled 4 weeks ago. So that might imply acquisitions. As you might know, we are in talks to set up a leading vehicle in mobility. So if you're interested in knowing more about this, you can ask Christophe about ESG and IT, because there will be many things. So the ESG, environmental, social, and governance questions, it's a revolution that's already on the way. We've seen this with COP26. And I'm glad to see that the contribution of the finance sector was acknowledged during COP26. And as I was saying, we are expecting a growing trend in IT and in digital technologies. So we will need to write the rule book when it comes to using and accessing these technologies in the most secure and responsible ways, to access data this way. So we will have specific IT projects for each of our business lines and operations. And we will, I guess, try to create something close to internal open sources. So basically, we'll be sharing APIs, the APIs developed by the entities in the group. So this will be one of the planks of our strategy. So thank you. I will be going now, and I certainly wish you a very interesting session.
C'est parfait. Donc, comme le mentionnait Frédéric.
So as Frédéric said, we see more and more so our business lines are being digitalized in Societe in Societe Generale. So some people are native digitals, and we also have models, bricks and mortars, which are becoming more and more digitized. So we talked about some figures in retail. 62% of our customers, out of the 23 million customers in retail, that regularly use digital means. So we're not just talking about customers who've signed up to digital, but these are customers who actually use the digital means, and we have a servicing rate which is over 75% though. So there's a strong appetite then for this type of channel, and which has led to more and more needs in terms of data usage, use cases. So it really is a reality in terms of Societe Generale. So one of the reasons that we need to mention why the bank is adapting to this are the new comers, which automatically use data in an industrial fashion. So you have Klarna, for example, which is a model of that, and Adyen for payments. These are models which are remunerated on valorization of data and selling the data to merchants in order to facilitate conversion when the customer goes to the checkout for e-commerce, for example. So creating value for these business models, this is very much focused on the ability, the industrial ability to sell data. Now, of course, in terms of the bank, we are seeing how we can adapt, and also how we can adapt to the fintech offers, which use data much more regularly in order to personalize service in real time. And I think we're going to be showing you this in a moment. At Societe Generale, we can be proud of the work that we've been doing for a couple of years now, and also the use that is being made of these services at Societe Generale. And as I said, this is something which is going on worldwide, and this is very much appreciated by customers. Now, just to give you an idea, post-COVID, of the different evolutions, what we've seen is for individual customers, there is greater use of digital means, and Frédéric mentioned this as well. This has led to platforms like Sinue. So this is about asset management. It's a kind of advisor which indicates the different investment possibilities. This is all done dynamically for transactions. And this is a product which is used by most of our customers online in France. Now, in terms of corporates, so we've also seen greater use of digital means. So most people have gone into e-commerce now. So it's not just for banking. So before they didn't have the possibility to do this. So now they are consuming more and more digital services, and this is something which was in the offing, and with COVID it has developed. Also we've got the professionalization of TPEs. We acquired Shine last year. Shine is more than a bank. It offers services in order to facilitate the life of other business people in all the various assets. So we're talking about basic banking services, but also accounting services, and cash management, so everything that concerns a business person, and also to consume some of the data so that they can personalize and customize their services on a daily basis. So this is one of the trends which is emerging in terms of very small companies and individual services. So aggregation of everything that they're doing in terms of e-commerce and the link with their cash flow, etc. So all this is in partnership with the fintechs. So I'm not sure whether we call them startups or fintechs anymore. Tirida allows us to do all this work in terms of data analysis, management of cash flow, new sorts of cash management. So we had a partnership. We started this 6 months ago, and we strengthened this with the publication of an offering, which we've seen works rather well. And in terms of the large corporates, we have seen digitization. That's always been present for key accounts, because they use the URPs internally, and they're connected for cash management to the management flows. So we've got SG markets within Societe Generale, which allows us to have this connection, as Frédéric said, with these APIs. And so more and more, so we have to have productive tools, which allows us to understand in terms of cash flow, in terms of the customer. We have to bring together different data points and make proposals to these customers, allow simulations as well. So this is something which is new, used in analytics as well for cross-sell and the upsell, and so that we can have a greater insight, more intelligence, and we can see that the most progressed banks, they do benchmarks, and this is very present on what we call the but also in terms of the onboarding processes, everything which is KYC, we use an awful lot of data analysis, for example. And throughout the world, we'll be able to use the same KYC for our key accounts. And this is now a reality in terms of Societe Generale. So we see that, and all this has been fed by data. So these are digital trends then, but it's also the ability to have a 360-degree vision, the ability to develop new services based on data, and all this has become a reality for Societe Generale. Now, we have categorized the different uses of data into 4 categories. The first is customization, recommendation, and this is so that we can have better expectations. So in terms of European countries, we respect all the GDPR rules. So this is not what was the case in all the different regions. For example, we have a bank in Russia, which, so things are managed differently depending on the region of the world that you're in. But in France, we can see that there are about 30%, 35% of uptake on the part of customers. They have they receive customized offers, but also in terms of servicing. and I'm referring here to the marketing part, the marketing aspects, we can use data to provide better services, different use cases then that are present in these various fields. So that's something which is extremely important for us, the fact that we have a bank which is more customized, more personal, and which has more digital relations, which allows us to provide services which are on time and which are in the right context for our customers. Now, the second part concerns responsiveness and speed. So this is about changing the transactional model. We want a much more interactive model. At Societe Generale, we use the chatbots, and these have already been deployed widely. In Boursorama, you have Aliet, for example. Just to give you an idea, we process in France about 15,000 conversations a day with a satisfaction rate of 98%. So this is something which is quite natural. And of course, it's the customer. If they don't find a response, then they'll be redirected to an agent who will be able to answer his or her questions. But in terms of the basic questions, they should be able to find an answer from the chatbot. And we've also seen the call bots arriving. So by telephone, for example, rather than having the traditional IVRs. So you press on the various buttons, you have a natural language, and this will guide you much more quickly to finding a solution to your problem. The DMPS for Boursorama. So the satisfaction rates there are quite high because it allows you to reduce the waiting time, and we use more and more AI, even in Russia as well. We'll be able to categorize the different emotions so that we can decide which customers need to be handled as a priority. So we can go quite far in order to answer customer questions. Now, we also have operational efficiency, but also in terms of protection of our bank. In terms of operational efficiency, clearly, the use of data allows us to make customers loyal, especially when you have a larger volume of customers. So an example that we show in Tech Week is the example of CAST. CAST is an analysis which is automatic of audio and electronic communications. 16 countries in the world will be able to process a speech to text, so the ability to translate speech into text, and also you can take photos, extract data which is present on the photos, and transform that into text that can then be analyzed. Translation services as well, 26 languages. So this is a system which is very robust and which allows us in real time to look at all the different communications and the transactions that are made across the group. And this allows us to strengthen operational efficiency across the group. And then in terms of protection for banking customers, we have Filière Défi in that respect. So these are use cases. You have the details of that. This allows us to manage fraud. There's quite a lot of fraud in the digital world, and it allows us to protect against new risks. Christophe will talk about this. So AI is a way of analyzing these huge volumes of data in real time and extract that data, and also to do what we call predictive analysis, not just analyzing data, but to be able to anticipate and be much more reactive in terms of protecting customer data.
So we are building a data-driven bank, and this becomes sort of a strategic safety net for the future. But we also have to realize that what we're looking for in most of our models is a form of artificial intelligence that works alongside our staff and customers. This is a trust-based brand of AI, which relies on robust foundations, technical ones and operational ones, if you want. We'll talk about it some more in a moment. And this is a very secured form of AI, which benefits from regulatory governance from inside of Societe Generale, so as to always be able, to comply with our obligations. We have, as Frédéric said, about 330 use cases within Societe Generale, and these are not proof of concepts, mind you. These are actual cases that are in production, in industrial production, as it were. We've seen an 80% rise since 2018 in the number of use cases. 179 of them use AI, and the portfolio for these projects is 230 million euros, with a strong acceleration over the last few months. So we are expecting a very likely, even stronger acceleration of these projects going forward, because we are integrating them more and more in our financial reporting approaches. So out of 330 cases, we track the efficiency in terms of efficiency gains, for instance, or in terms of assets, if you will. So we don't know the exact breakdown out of the 230 million, which is due to what is due to AI and what is due to something else than AI, but that's the overall figure for those new use cases. About 15 of those use cases are now at scale and have been deployed across several of our business units. They're not just used in the French retail bank or the Russian retail bank. They are used across different entities. And this number has been increasing in the previous months, because obviously the cross-country, cross-regional use of these technologies is very much what we're aiming for and working towards. So here is a breakdown of the use cases. That's the breakdown actually of the 333 cases. So the last element I wanted to talk about, I've talked about the uses, obviously, and how they're being deployed across our business models, and I've talked about value generation, but first and foremost, it is a cultural revolution beyond the mere technological one. This is why we spend quite a lot of time in training courses. We have about 1,000 data experts within Societe Generale. We have 300 data scientists, then we have people who prepare the data. You have Christophe and Julien with us, who are in charge of those operational teams, and we have an IT department specialized in providing these data related services. But this is really a cultural revolution for our operations, our business lines, because the idea is that we all become responsible for an owner of this data, so that the data can be reused throughout the company. And this is, I think, the major challenge for all companies in the world, and certainly for us. We want to be sure that our source data is reliable and can be used throughout the group. And we have signed group contract with Dataiku, which is a company that provides automatic reporting services and the use of artificial intelligence modules that can be shared with other companies. So this is really a strategic partner that will help us accelerate this and also help us sort of democratize the use of AI, because when you use with such a partner like Dataiku, you don't need to be an expert. You sort of outsource this expertise. So we still obviously have to train our business operations and people to use these new tools from our partner, because it's a new way of working. In a regulated entity such as Societe Generale, you spend quite a lot of time in governance and meetings, obviously, and now this implies obviously ensuring that risk management is done properly, and additional elements as well. And through the new data platforms, you can almost prepare these reports in real time, thanks to Dataiku, for instance. And so this is really real-time reporting. So obviously, our data scientists have to model the template very precisely. But when they do, it really is a huge time saver compared to what we did before, because these PowerPoint presentations that are put together this way sort of automatically are now very reliable and very fast to put together. So as managers, we'll have to change the way we work. We'll have to accept that the preparation of governance meetings are done differently, that sort of cycles are organized differently. And so this is a different way of working, in top management, in the operational teams. And we have to train the people who are preparing these committees. I've mentioned data scientists, but we won't down the line all of our staff to be able to use these services, if you will. So this requires new skills that we are developing throughout the group. I've mentioned data scientists, those who prepare data. So data technicians, basically, a range of crafts, if you will, that about a dozen of new professions. Some of them are little known, but basically data analysts positions that are new positions that will be created within our entities at Societe Generale. So we are rolling out training programs, which are quite ambitious. For the last 3 years, over the last 3 years, we've trained all of our top 60 managers. We have, organized hands-on training courses on what is predictability, what are the main forms of AI being used in the group. We keep, obviously, providing them with use cases, because this really starts from the top in the way that our CEOs are promoting and fostering this change. And so they need to be aware of the use cases to embed it in their business line strategies. All of our staff actually have access to training courses. Last year, we have trained 5,000 people in those training courses. 2,000 of them received a qualification at the end of that course on AI and technical questions. We have also developed reskilling programs. So basically, it's on a voluntary basis, and it's staff who decide to be reskilled, to change positions, basically, and become a data analyst, for instance. So we foresee that there will be 10% internal mobility through for the people who go through the reskilling program. It's not just AI and data, but that's part of it. And so we plan to reskill about 200 people this year on these questions. And if this is a success, we will scale it up within Societe Generale quite importantly. So this gives you an idea regarding the nature of the transformation that we're going through to become a real data-driven bank. Again, AI is a reality. It's not something that we hope for. 333 use cases that we use on a daily basis to service our customers. That's a reality. That's tangible. Often our staff will tell us that it's not really AI, it's just a way to work more efficiently on a daily basis. But this is what AI is about. And so this is how we win people over, from a cultural standpoint. Because, again, it's not so much a technological revolution. This is really a transformation of the way we work in the bank. And in the background, there is a sort of a momentum, and there is also a changing landscape with new competitors on the market who use AI in a very intensive manner. So, Christophe, thank you, Claire. Thank you for illustrating this transformation of our operations and support functions thanks to AI. I would like to really insist on two elements to see this through, we need two things. First of all, we need to work in a responsible manner when it comes to data. Second of all, we need technological foundations that allow our business lines to develop the use cases that Claire mentioned. What does being responsible mean? I've tried to provide you with a few illustrations so that you have a concrete example of what we're talking about. First of all, as we know, using data can become exponential and overwhelming. So in terms of responsibility, we need to pay attention to the impacts of consuming such huge levels of data when it comes to CO2 emissions. You know that one of our strategic planks beyond customer centricity and efficiency is CSR. And on this note, we have committed ourselves in 2019 because we've signed the IT responsibility or digital responsibility charter. So in terms of CSR, obviously we have data, but let us try to use data in a frugal way only once in best case scenario, and let's destroy it afterwards. So that's the sort of gross use of data. The second thing is our footprint in terms of data centers. In 2017, we've started a wave of renovation of our data centers. We've left behind the data centers that consume most energy to move towards more resilient facilities. So we've shifted from Tigerie to Marcoussis, a new data center, which is much more modern and consumes much less electricity and therefore emits less CO2. So on this note, in terms of CSR, our IT department has committed itself and will commit itself further to strongly decrease its CO2 emissions, because by 2025 we want to have decreased by 15% the IT CO2 consumption level. So obviously our responsibility is towards the environment, and we want to optimize what we do there. As Frédéric was saying in his introduction, we realized that CSR is going to change the way that we provide advisory services to our customers, the way we relate with our corporate clients. The idea being to foster the energy transition of all of our partners, of all of the ecosystem in which we operate. We are going to change our credit sort of granting process, amongst other things. So we need new types of data, which provide us with a different picture of our customers in terms of their CSR footprint. And so we will have to use this in order to urge all of our ecosystem to move with us towards a more sustainable system. So as you've understood, bank, it needs to be a trusted partner and a well-protected partner too. So to protect ourselves, we need to obviously fight data leakages. So we've developed so-called DLPs, data leakage protection tools. So that way we can better detect leaks of data towards the outside that wouldn't be lawful. So this concerns all information channels, emails, but also internet flows. So this is part of our commitment as a bank to ensure the protection of the data of the bank and of the staff. So being responsible regarding the use of data also means using algorithms in a responsible manner. We're currently in the process of drafting an internal charter to use bias-free IA models to ensure that the models that we do use do not favor a category or a profile of customers over another, or do not contain a bias that would lead us to carry out erroneous credit rating practices. So this is what we're doing to roll out what Claire has talked about. in a responsible framework.
Évidemment qu'on le fait.
So, of course, we say this respecting all the rules and regulations, respecting the GRDP, which requires consentment of our customers in some cases. So that's for the responsibility aspect. Now, when we look at the technical solutions that underpin this transformation, well, in terms of underpinning this transformation, so we have data warehouses, and those are available to our data scientists that Claire mentioned. The idea is to have a warehouse which allows us to have as much data as possible. And this data warehouse is either stored in a data center or on the private cloud, if you like, and or on the public cloud. And you can see that we have divided this up into various fields. The fields for central functions, data concerning finance, HR, compliance, but also into retail banking in France. So in the same data warehouse, and all this is available to the whole community, because what's important here is that data should not be owned by a certain business line. It should be open to everybody. It should be available to everybody within this data warehouse. And so we have some of the data as well on the public cloud. You can see all that data that concerns investment banking. But this is managed globally. Recently, we created an IT division which is in charge of digital and data solutions, DDS. And this division manages the whole of this data warehouse, which is able to guide any requests that come from the support functions, for example, can guide them towards the right location, but also provides expertise in terms of the internal data lake or in terms of the public cloud. And now, in terms of the size, the scale, this is very important because we're talking about a technological asset that represents about 40 petabytes of data. Now, another important point in terms of data transfer, as you will have understood, we have a private cloud where we put most of our data, but that we also have principles in terms of data transfer, and those are on the public cloud. So we respect the regulations in force. There are some countries which forbid us from transferring data onto the public cloud or to the major cloud operators. Now, this is the case in Russia, in China as well. But we have also set up some internal principles whereby we can authorize or not certain transfers. So nowadays, we do authorize a lot of the transfers, except for individual customers. There's a certain sensitivity there. And I would say we've had exchanges with the government on creating a confidence-based cloud. And we are very interested in this initiative because once this initiative is up and running, if it does emerge, and there are discussions currently with Microsoft, Capgemini and Orange, as you may know, so with the Blue Initiative. So perhaps then we could put data from individual customers on that cloud and benefit from a development environment as we have as we found in other clouds. So it's a technological tool that's built over the last couple of years, which is available to our different business lines so that they can transform and use all these data assets that exist in the bank. Now, perhaps a parenthesis here. I've been talking about the cloud, and this is one of our strategic axes in terms of IT strategy that we are working on, and this will take us up to 2025. So we had continued, or we will continue to use the cloud in a huge way. Now, what we did from 2017 to 2020 is that we built this technological tool so that we could be acclimatized into the cloud, internal cloud or public cloud. So we had an objective, and in November 2017 Investor Days, we said that we would have 80% of our servers on the cloud. Now, we didn't make any distinction there. It was a cloud which was for first generation, or second generation. So that was the most optimized type of cloud. The first generation has fewer services available, so less interesting then. So it was important that we trigger this movement, and now we're at more than 80% of our infrastructure is on the cloud. But in terms of our new strategic phase, what we want to do is to use and really push the second generation cloud, which allows the developers to be as efficient as possible. Now, what does this mean? It means that we have about 15% of second generation cloud at the moment in terms of infrastructure on the cloud, and we want to move towards 75% in the future. But this will require important transformation of our applications, because automation on the cloud, this requires transformation of tools. So this is the important axis of our strategy, and also this helps about in terms of the data that we are concerned with this morning. And a last point, in terms of the necessary technical base, we have to have data warehouses, but you have to be able to access these, and also have the data tooling in these warehouses to allow the data scientists, just like other co-workers, to really benefit from these data assets. Now, we've developed a number of tools, some of these that focus on accessibility and quality. Accessibility, then, once again, we want a responsible use of data. So there we work on workflows which allow each of the different business lines to have access to this data. Is it authorized? Is it not authorized? There are rules, legal rules, compliance rules, which must be respected. And so this is what we've done. This is what we've set up to allow us to give a green light to all the users of the data lake to say, yes, you can go ahead for this or that use, you can have access to this data. And this was necessary so that we could have satisfactory access. Now, the second thing there, and Claire mentioned this as well, access tools to develop use cases by data scientists. As Claire said, the idea is to develop techniques, code or no code, and this will be done by specialists like data scientists. So we're dealing with accessibility. In terms of data quality now, I would say what's important there for a data warehouse is that the data has to be well described. So we are working on data dictionary, applicative data. So where does the data come from, how it has been created in the applications, how it got into the lake, and this allows us to have the correct description of data, and this allows us, people who want to have access to this data lake, to see where we have stored this or that information relating to this or that piece of data. So as you will have understood, our transformation is ongoing, and of course we're using data fully, but this is done within a responsible framework, and we have technological assets that we've developed over the last couple of years and that we want to use to the full. Now, I will perhaps stop there, and we will try and take your questions, and perhaps we'll leave some time. So this is the launch of Tech Week, which is done digitally, and Jean-Sébastien might present at the end. The digital platform, this will allow you to have an idea of the Tech Week with its different parts, and of course, data is very important in terms of this platform. You can go from one pavilion to another, and you'll discover these pavilions with Jean-Sébastien, and these are the important elements of our future IT strategy from 2022 to 2025. So now I can take the questions. We have some questions online. You need a microphone, please. So I have a question. You talk about clouds of first generation, second generation. So perhaps you can tell us about the type of technology used. I'm sure you've got Azure, but not just Azure. You talked about a multi-cloud strategy. So what about the breakdown in terms of these clouds that you call first generation and second generation? We need to know about the technology. And then we have the sovereign cloud. Blue, you're interested by that. Yeah, and so the data strategy of Societe Generale will depend on these sovereign clouds, but then, of course, you have traditional clouds, AWS, Google, in the current offering. Yes. Now, basically, we have two external cloud providers, AWS and Azure. Now, we don't want to have a whole host of different external providers because, as you will understand, this also creates a certain operational complexity, managing relations with several external clouds. So we have to make sure, however, that when we use the external cloud, that we do this within a certain framework. And we've developed tools, trust and control tools, which allow us to use the external cloud in a sure and safe manner for our IT teams. So two major external clouds, Azure and AWS. And you've seen today that the footprint from these external clouds is increasing, even if it is rather limited compared to all the internal infrastructure that we use. So thinking about 2025, which was in the slide, we think that the footprint of the external cloud will basically represent 25% of our infrastructure, so that we should have no delusions about this, but we will have a lot of our applications and data which will be stored still on the internal cloud. Now, when I mentioned the second generation cloud, the external cloud is a second generation cloud. Now, we've also created a second generation cloud which allows us to have services not as complete as on the external cloud, but we have services which are important for the developers. For example, they can create database environments much more easily than they could in the past. So on one click, this is done, and this is created on servers of a second generation. So this is called PaaS in our jargon. So the idea is to reorient all our different applications to this second generation cloud or the public cloud. So this means that the applications have to become automatic, and I'm not going to go into too much detail. And this will allow the developers to develop things much more quickly and also be more resilient for us in the future. And then there's the issue that you asked about this trust-based cloud. So yes, we are interested in this initiative because we can see that our customers are sensitive to where we're going to put their data. So in particular, the individual banking customers. So everything that allows us to move into an environment like Azure on a trust-based cloud, which doesn't come under the American Cloud Act. So this is something that we're looking at very closely. And I would say that we're also looking at the way in which the ecosystem will change because we've got pressure from our customers to migrate towards this trust-based cloud or not. Let me remind you that in Germany, I believe it was, there was an initiative on this trust-based cloud. It didn't work because at the end of the day, it wasn't all that important for customers, and it was also much more expensive.
So the way that they will bill their services compared to a so-called traditional cloud service, it will be a factor. So we're interested, but we are not going to go there with a blindfold saying, let's go all in, So there will be some services for which this is adapted and others not. So to benefit from a more comprehensive environment than in the public cloud, we'll go towards a trust-based cloud, if you will. I hope I answered your question. Good morning, Kevin from AFP. You were talking about the appreciation on the part, or the sensitivity on the part of French customers, the question of trust and the cloud, and the question of the big US tech companies. Is it the case in other markets? Well, it seems to be less relevant, or, well, there are certain countries for which this is forbidden, so obviously we won't be doing that there. But the French government and Europe with Gaia X and the determination on the part of the French state to create a so-called trust-based cloud, well, we so far we have not transferred customer data on a public cloud. This is why we are looking with a lot of interest at the so-called blue cloud facility. I see that we have a question online. What's the timeline for the implementation of these technologies? When will the African subsidiaries of SG be able to enjoy these technological developments? And in which case, are you going to train IT experts locally? As far as the timeline is concerned, as you've understood, the transformation of applications, which is the right way to go about it, the right way to transfer to a public cloud, because if you don't transform your app and you go directly to public cloud, this is called the lift and shift, you won't really be able to really benefit from the possible automation of your developments, and there's no real point in doing this. It doesn't make business sense, basically, so you should rather stick with your internal processes. So this application transformation takes time. So this migration of 75% of our operations to second generation cloud will take 2 to 3 years. So, and our objective, our target is basically 2025 to achieve all of this. So your questions regarding the subsidiaries, I'm looking at Jean-Sébastien, who is working and who's supervising the ex-BFS, the specialized subsidiaries and the African subsidiaries. Yes, they are part of the movement. They should not be left by the wayside. Now, clearly, there are regulations in Africa which do not necessarily favor or foster the use of public cloud. We are aware of this, so it's going to necessitate a bit of time before we can migrate towards such public clouds. And if we cannot do this, then we need to be able to direct our subsidiaries in Africa towards the second generation cloud, and we will be working on it. So the first objective for our African subsidiaries is to allow for the use of our internal cloud services, and this requires us to discuss with local lawmakers and regulators, because transferring data from an African country towards France is not always, a foregone conclusion. So this requires some legal legwork. So what we want to do first and foremost is to roll out our internal cloud towards these subsidiaries before shifting them over to the public cloud services. Well, in Africa specifically, we are seeing that customers want to use the AI services and data services just as much as French customers. We've launched an online bank called Societe in Africa. So it's a very innovative service. For instance, in Morocco, this is one of the first online banks, much like Boursorama in France. So obviously, it's all about data. Upsell, cross-sell, chatbots. So they are really they really want basically to benefit from everything that we do within the group to accelerate their transformations and the transformation of the usages. So in Africa, we've worked also a lot to improve the use of data in operations. So basically, in several countries, we are working with banks to industrialize their model. They want to go faster in terms of AI transformation. And regarding the services, the uses, if you will, we are seeing a lot of local banks adopting these new technologies in their services. So strategy, uses, the quality of data, the infrastructure. So basically, all the pieces of the puzzle have to fit together in order to create these new digital industrial models. But there's no one size fits all, you know. All the these are multi-year large transformations which carry quite a lot of legal applications as well. At Societe Generale, we pay utmost attention to the storaging and the conservation of data, as you know. So a very precise, concrete question regarding one use case of data regarding the sensitivity to it of consumers. 2 years ago, I think two or 3 years ago, you launched a so-called cashback offer based on your analysis of credit card consumptions. So the question back then, the question is, are you going to resell this data to merchants? So you said at first that no, back then, but that it could change. So this type of very specific case, you know, this sort of debate between or dilemma between data protection and the use of data for commercial purposes. So it's a very precise case. So at this point, we don't intend to sell customer data. We believe that a bank is a trusted partner, and we want to really build on the philosophy of the brand. And this will be a differentiating factor in the future. So our position is not to sell customer data. And we're talking about retail customers. Now, the cashback services have evolved. First, there was a first service for Societe Generale. We have another offer called The Corner, just for Boursorama. And The Corner is an offering that will provide a much more integrated digital navigation system. And you will be able to access travel offers and merchant offers also online. So it's a new, cashback service. So we are going to better analyze the data. But obviously, we always ask for the consent of our customers for them to benefit of the service. So, but we are not selling customer data. I have
perhaps the last question online. So we're going to take the time to take those questions. Raoul Maghetti, I was wondering what's behind this idea of a second generation cloud, and then what stage are you at with deployment? How many users do you have? And for data scientists and also for citizen data scientists, how many have you got within Societe Generale? So in terms of the second generation cloud, it's a PaaS platform which allows us to have automatic environments which are comprehensive and complete for data scientists. So before we just had, we were just on computer, the ES platform. So it's a PaaS platform. So in terms of using data EQ, well, yes, and I defer to Julien and Christine. These figures are changing a lot because we signed the group contract this summer. So this is something which is very much in demand. Data Echo does the traceability of data, and it also automates reporting. So we don't use all the different modules, but a solution that we'd already had a couple of years back in the risk function, where for the risk data they used this platform, and they automated most of their regulatory reporting. So more than about 50 different licenses already within risk, and then 25 licenses for KB, which is the retail banking in the Czech Republic, and they will be using different use cases, especially for business. And at the group level, we've signed 300 licenses, is that correct? Slightly under 300. So what's the exact figure? Off mic. 150 to 200, those have been signed group-wide, and we are deploying those very quickly, as I mentioned. So when the entities understand how they can use these, then they tend to use these quite automatically. But these are low-code, no-code, so it's not just for data scientists to use platforms more. We also have business lines like compliance, risk management, and operations that now do manual checks, where you want them to migrate towards this type of use. It's a kind of a changing culture. And some of my role is to go and see the different CEOs and the different entities and to see what the problems are there. And then, so making this cultural shift, we have to tell them, oh, well, you can do things more quickly with more efficiency, better productivity. So it's not just about licenses. It's also the operating model, which is changing. As you know, the bank is changing all across the board. But it's one of our priorities for the next 2 years. Another question, which I want to take, Christine Ozpau, who says, so the question on Africa that you didn't answer that. Well, in Africa, you would like to specialize things in terms of the different regions with our technicians. We've got centers in Morocco and also in Ivory Coast. So we have specialized centers there then which allow us to support sub-Saharan Africa and the rest of Africa from Morocco. So, and this is where we train our IT staff, and infrastructure has teams on site within these different specialized centers. So we use those centers as a vector for IT in Africa, so there's local support as well. But most of the development then and most of the knowledge is concentrated in these different centers in Africa. And there's a regional aspect which is very strong in terms of sub-Saharan Africa as well as for the rest of Africa. And then there's another question concerning algorithms. What are you going to do to ensure these? Now, I said that we are discussing internally about developing a charter for use of algorithms, AIR algorithms. So there are a number of principles there. The bank has an advantage here because, as you know, we have teams which are used to checking these various models, valorization of assets, market products, things like that. So it's the same principle, basically. So when in the future we will have to check these algorithms for AI, for certain uses, so that we will kind of put these through various filters, use a kind of audit, if you like, in terms of our AI models. Now, this is in the future because, as you know, Europe is also reflecting on regulations for AI, and perhaps for the most risky cases, we need to have this type of tool or mechanism. But anyway, it already does exist in terms of validating our financial assets. So a last question. So what about the return on investment? The typical ROI for an AI model. So, no, I don't think so, Claire. Words were off my... Well, we don't have a typical ROI. Over the last 3 years, we've made a lot of effort, and we realized that there was AI that was used, or data cases that didn't generate very much value. So very little potential in rolling this out worldwide. But what's important is that we have created this framework for analyzing value so that we can focus our efforts on those cases which have most potential. And therefore, we working with Christophe's team and my teams, we can scale the AI upwards. And this will create an industrial digital heart, if you like, in the long term. That's our conviction. So we've done all this work upstream, and so it was just in its infancy at the time, and that's so we had some cases there that didn't generate very much value. So now it's about generation of value, reuse, and the ability to not develop something X ties over, just have one model and something which really works and which is efficient. We'll roll that out more widely. So you have Personetics, and there we want it to be at the scale of the organization. And so this is why we show this to our co-workers, to make sure that they can use it for the different business lines. Now, I suggest that we hand over to Jean-Sébastien, who's going to do a quick demonstration of this platform, the digital campus that I mentioned before. Good morning, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I just want to show you this platform. This is the fourth session of Tech Week, the fourth year that we've been doing this. This year, as in previous years, this is a kind of the place where you see the technology used at Societe Generale. We've got 33 use cases that are presented, 17 different conferences. You'll see this on the platform, and this is the opportunity for us, for the 140,000 employees, to get used to digital throughout the world. So this is a very good way of reaching our international entities. So we wanted to digitalize this event, and we've seen this. There are some countries which are more at ease with digital than others. So what I suggest now is to launch the video so that you discover this universe. And this is what our users are currently consulting. So it's an immersive platform, 3D. You can see this on different devices. So this is a technological village. You can see 6 different pavilions. So those are our main axes in terms of data, but they also have platforms. Security, which is very important, CSR, which is important, efficiency, and the cloud. So we're going to go into the data room to give you a very concrete example. The different pavilions are configured in the same way. You have a list of the different conferences, etc., that you have access to, and then you can go into the demonstrations area. So this is a specific demonstration. We talked about Sinoe, and you can get documents on that. You can chat with experts who have built these use cases.
C'est parti. Et si on a le son, c'est top.
Dans la vie, il y a des choix plus faciles à faire que d'autres. Choisis fraise. Dans une société en pleine évolution, où les cartes sont rebattues continuellement, comment optimiser au mieux son patrimoine ? Pour mieux répondre aux besoins de ses clients, la banque privée France Société Générale a développé Sinoe et Mon Patrimoine. Avec ces 2 solutions complémentaires, les clients ont désormais accès à une solution de conseil digital jusqu'à présent réservée aux banquiers. Ces nouveaux outils, c'est plus de réactivité, d'agilité et de conseils en quelques clics. Véritable hub digital, la solution Mon Patrimoine donne aux clients une vue globale et détaillée de leur patrimoine, financiers et non financiers, chez Société Générale Banque Privée ainsi que dans d'autres établissements. Tout ça en un seul coup d'œil. Ressources juridiques, fiscales, ainsi qu'un outil d'autodiagnostic d'allocation d'actifs complètent ce dispositif. À la clé, des actifs optimisés, un échange banquier-client approfondi et des solutions proposées collant parfaitement aux besoins exprimés. Sinoe est une solution de conseil en arbitrage digital. En fonction du profil des clients, elle propose des arbitrages adaptés à ses objectifs et ses connaissances financières, tout en lui laissant la main pour davantage d'autonomie. Ces conseils personnalisés sont générés grâce à des choix stratégiques de la banque privée Société Générale. Allocation de son portefeuille, performance de ses investissements, toutes les informations sont regroupées dans un tableau de bord. Ces 2 solutions rencontrent un véritable succès auprès de nos clients. Cette réussite nous donne envie d'aller plus loin. Dans la même lignée technologique que Sinoe, le service Le Coach Financier sera bientôt disponible pour les clients en gestion libre. Pour Mon Patrimoine, l'objectif est de détecter les points d'attention liés à la structure du patrimoine et pourquoi pas d'intégrer un diagnostic ISR-ESG. Enfin, pour davantage de fluidité dans le dialogue, d'accélérer le recueillement du consentement. Cette nouvelle approche digitale du conseil patrimonial permet aux équipes d'apporter une valeur ajoutée commerciale différenciante, mais c'est aussi un excellent moyen de reconnecter les clients dormants avec des solutions personnalisées et pourquoi pas de capter des actifs détenus par la concurrence. À la clé, une meilleure contribution aux objectifs de croissance. Plus de réactivité pour davantage de valeur, voilà le secret de ces deux solutions qui pourraient être bientôt étendues à d'autres entités.
Quand soit du big data, du machine learning, il y a beaucoup de choses qui sont dans ce use case. Pour finir, donc c'est
So to conclude, this is an unprecedented format. We're very humbled by it. We've opened the platform to a certain number of students as well, and it brought quite a lot of people, 800 people, 800 students signed up to discover this experience. So this is what I wanted to share with you. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for coming all the way here at Societe Generale. Thank you for following us online as well. I hope this shone a light on what we do on the digital front. Thank you very much.